Today I was wondering if this was going to be a homily or a rant. I've decided it was to be a homily with with an overtone of rant. Today's gospel reading is very cogent for our times, very, very prescient of the things that we deal with as a church. Hear what Jesus has said in the parable, that the good master of the field had actually sowed good seed into the field, wheat. And everyone knows that wheat is from its abundance we get our bread and our sustenance from. And yet someone had come in the night and sowed in tares or weeds, as it may be, and they would grow up along with the wheat, and so they would be mixed in with the wheat and kind of tangled in with the good seed of the wheat. And so when the servants found out what had happened, they came to the master and said, "Did you not sow good seed? Did you not sow the good wheat in the field?" The master, perceiving the problem, had said that someone has come and sowed in tares among the wheat. And so what to do about the weeds? What to do? If any of you have ever had a garden before, you know that there's a constant struggle to fight the weeds which will come and plant themselves in between the flowers and the shrubs that you've lovingly placed into the ground. The Lord himself in his kingdom has planted good seed in each one of us who have come to him. And the seed is good and it's virtuous. And it's without parallel. And yet, the enemy, who is always lurking about, has sowed in weeds among the wheat. And so we look at the church today as did probably many of the Protestant reformers at the time when the church had become so infested with weeds. And some had said, well, we can repair this foundation, we can repair this. All we have to do is wait for the wheat to come to fruition, and then we will take the weeds up and they will be burned away in the chaff. And yet, some said we should root the whole thing up and cast it into the fire and form something brand new. A Swedish reformer by the name of Zwingli was of the opinion that the church was so corrupt that it just could not be salvaged, and so he wanted to destroy it and completely bring up a new church, and thought that would be the way about it. Others had different opinions, and thank God that they did, that Zwingli didn't have his way, because here we are today. We are the vestiges of the first century church who have come and are still growing as the good wheat. However, there are weeds that you will come across. There are people who will come to you and try to destroy your faith. Some of these people claim to be Christian themselves. Some of these will be in the church and they claim that the church yet needs another reforming, that we need to become current with the times, that perhaps this church, which we have the faith delivered from the apostles of old, perhaps that's not sufficient for this day and age, because we, modern people, have become more knowledgeable of the things of science and the things of God, that perhaps we should change as well. Well, I would say to them that if we believe as a church in absolute truth and ultimate truth has been revealed, then there is no need for us to become current with the times, that perhaps the times need to become current with the church. You see, it is not the church's duty to conform itself to the whims of society. It is the church's duty to conform society to its absolute truth. We stand before you, clergy, and also people of the faith, and we stand before the world. We are not perfect people by any means. Sometimes we have to prune the weeds growing in our own gardens, do we not? Sometimes we let those weeds grow for too long and they destroy our faith. And sometimes people who do that fall away from the church and the teachings. But they can come back. You see, as people of God, we have to prune ourselves every day, lest the weeds overtake us and strangle out the life of the good seed which has been planted within us. People will come to the church, people will go. The door is always open. You will find that people tend to come to the church with their own sets of ideas. And they say, well, I know better. We should do this. I've dealt with many of those. We will have people who have thought themselves to be policemen of the faith or policemen of the church, and they will come in and they get so wrapped up in theological dialogue and dogmatical, protecting the dogmas of the church, that they forget to feed the hungry in their midst. They forget to proclaim the word to the unbeliever. Many times we find ourselves faced with such people. They have let the weeds grow up in their own garden, and they have let it overtake them to where it has blinded them to the view and the duty of which they are called to do as Christians. You see, we are called to proclaim the gospel. We have not been called to change it. We have not been called to give a new meaning to it. We have not been called to make the church relevant. We've been called to preach the gospel. And so Jesus knew this. In this parable, he tells the ones who are with him. He says, you know, someone sowed the weeds among the wheat, and then let the weeds be destroyed before, and then go harvest the wheat. Now, obviously, in his audience here, one can imagine Pharisees standing off to the side, saying, well, yeah, this is a true teaching. I understand what he's saying because we have weeds growing up all the time. I can tell these people who are not us. Little did they know Christ was speaking about them. The weeds come to destroy the faith. The weeds come to sap the life out of your piety and out of your faith. And there will always be the weeds amongst us. How do we fight against them? The battle starts within you. Do not let weeds grow up in your own faith. Do not let the evil one come and plant doubts in your own faith practice. When you pray, you will always hear the evil one whispering in your ear, what are you praying for? You are such a sinful person. Why do you think that he will listen to you? Why do you think that you have the right to come before him and pray? Why do you think that you have the right to come before this table and partake of the gifts that Christ has given you freely? And you will hear those every day of your life. But the thing to think about is this. You don't have to listen to him. You do not have to let that seed of tares grow up in your faith. You only have to let your faith grow. You have the testimony of the faith of Christ being given in his word through his church. And in such a way, you have what you need to grow, what fosters the good seed. Take heart in that, and next time that you are actually facing those whisperings and those doubts and those negative feelings, or sometimes when you're faced with those negative people who are trying to destroy your faith, perhaps it would be time for you to remind them that to them is the fire reserved. My lesson for you today and my admonition for you, if you do the things that your priest tells you to do, is to take this parable and read it throughout the week. Remember it, memorize it. And remember when those people will come to persecute you and those people will come to destroy your faith. Remind them of where they are and what they are. Cling to the words of Christ, not to the words of these weeds. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.